Vancouver. From the air, it's a modern jewel of glass and steel, nestled against the vast, unforgiving wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. A city perched on the very edge of a continent where the mountains meet the sea. But listen closely, past the hum of traffic and the rhythm of the bustling port. You can still hear it. A sound that's woven into the very fabric of this place. The lonely, mournful call of a train horn, echoing through the sprawling rail yards and the ever-present coastal fog that rolls in from the water, blanketing everything in a shroud of grey mystery. This city, and indeed this entire province, was built on a foundation of steel. The Canadian Pacific Railway, a ribbon of iron forged through impossible mountain ranges and dense, ancient forests, was the lifeblood that connected British Columbia to the rest of the nation. It was a monumental feat of engineering, a powerful symbol of progress and ambition. But progress always comes at a price, a cost not measured in dollars but in human lives. Every single mile of that track was paid for in sweat, in toil, and all too often, in blood. The men who worked these lines were a different breed entirely. They faced treacherous weather, sudden rock slides, and the constant grinding danger of the massive machinery itself. In the long, dark nights and the thick, disorienting fog, stories were born. Whispers shared over cheap whiskey and smoky trackside taverns. Tales of strange lights and eerie feelings in the loneliest, most isolated stretches of the yard. They say the land remembers, that the cold steel rails themselves hold the echoes of the past, replaying tragedies for those who know how to look. And one story, more than any other, has persisted through the decades. A legend that sends a chill down the spine of even the most hardened, cynical railway worker. It begins not with a scream, but with a light, a single swinging lantern, bobbing rhythmically in the oppressive darkness where no living soul should be. A pinpoint of ghostly warmth in the cold, damp air, moving with a steady, deliberate purpose that feels unnatural. As it draws closer, a shape begins to emerge from the mist. The unmistakable silhouette of a man in old-fashioned railway attire, dutifully walking the tracks. But as your eyes struggle to adjust to the gloom, a horrifying, impossible detail becomes clear. Where his head should be, there is nothing. Just the empty, dark collar of his coat against the fog. They call him the Headless Brakeman. To understand the ghost, you have to understand the man and the world he inhabited. Back in the early 1900s, being a brakeman was one of the most perilous jobs on the entire railway. They were the nimble daredevils of the line, running along the tops of moving freight cars in rain, ice or snow to manually turn the cast-iron brake wheels. A single misstep, a moment of lost balance, could mean a fatal fall between the clattering, unforgiving wheels. The coupling of cars was another deadly dance, a split-second task that could crush a man in an instant. It was a life lived perpetually on the edge, where death was a constant, silent companion on every single journey. In the sprawling, steam-choked rail yards of early Vancouver, life was a symphony of iron and fire. For the men who worked the lines, it was a dangerous dance. The most perilous role was that of the brakeman, hardy men tasked with coupling the massive, unforgiving train cars on foot in all weather. But it was the nights they feared most. That's when the coastal fog would creep in, a silent grey predator, swallowing the yard's whole. It transformed the familiar landscape into a disorienting maze where sound was muffled and sight was a luxury. In this blinding veil, a single misstep could be your last. The legend centres on one such night, colder and foggier than any in memory. The air was thick with a damp, bone-chilling mist, turning the wooden ties slick and the steel rails to ice. A veteran brakeman was nearing the end of his shift, his lantern cutting a weak circle in the oppressive gloom. As he stepped between two freight cars to secure a coupling, the night's treachery revealed itself. Some say his boot slipped on an icy tie. Others whisper the engineer, blind in the fog, nudged the train forward without warning. A sudden, violent lurch. A shouted curse swallowed by the mist. He lost his footing, a desperate scramble for purchase on the cold, indifferent metal, but there was nothing to hold on to. The sound was a sickening crunch of bone and metal. His lantern flew from his grasp, shattering on the gravel below, its light extinguished. Silence returned. broken only by the hiss of steam. It wasn't until the morning shift arrived that the grim discovery was made. His fellow workers found his body lying beside the track, and a wave of horror washed over them. The train had severed his head completely. A frantic search began, a desperate attempt to find the missing part for a proper burial. They scoured the tracks and ditches, but the head was nowhere to be found. It was as if the fog itself had claimed it. The story of the accident became a grim, cautionary tale, but soon it evolved. Workers on late-night shifts reported strange occurrences near where the brakeman had died. A fleeting light, the crunch of gravel on an empty track, a sudden, inexplicable cold. At first, they were dismissed as tricks of the light or frayed nerves, but the sightings became more frequent, more distinct. Engineers peering from their cabs swore they saw a lone figure carrying a lantern, wandering aimlessly between the lines. Yard workers would catch a glimpse of a man in old-fashioned railway attire, a figure who would vanish the moment they called out. Soon the figure was seen more clearly, and the chilling truth was revealed. It was the brakeman, or what was left of him, a spectral, headless form, doomed to walk the rails for eternity. In his hand he carries a ghostly lantern, its ethereal glow cutting through the densest fog, a beacon for his own tormented spirit. He stumbles along the tracks, his movements frantic, forever reliving his final moments. He is searching, always searching. He peers under boxcars and wanders the long, dark stretches of track, moving through the very fog that sealed his fate, looking for his lost head, driven by a desperate need to be whole again. The legend of the Headless Brakeman didn't die with the age of steam. It evolved, becoming a ghost story for the diesel era. Even today the stories persist, whispered between shifts in break rooms or over the crackle of a radio. They are tales of the here and now. Some say if you're working alone in the sprawling yards near the port of Vancouver, when the city's hum dies down, you'll hear it. Not a footstep, but the distinct, sharp click of a metal hook on gravel, pacing behind you, always just out of sight. You turn, your flashlight cutting through the gloom, and find nothing but empty tracks, the sound vanishing into the vast industrial silence. Others, particularly those working the late-night shunts, claim they've seen the lantern's eerie, swinging glow bobbing between the lines of freight cars. It moves with a purpose, a steady, searching rhythm, only to extinguish in an instant, just a heartbeat before a 2-mile-long container train rumbles by, its horn blasting a warning that seems meant for more than just the living. For generations of railroaders, Hubmal's ghost became more than a campfire story, a vital piece of occupational folklore, a spectral safety brief. A retired engineer who worked these lines for over 40 years told us, "You don't joke about the brakeman, not really. We all knew the story. It wasn't about being scared of a ghost. It was about respect. Respect for the machinery, for the weight, for the noise." A modern freight train weighs thousands of tons. It can't stop on a dime or swerve. When you're on the ground in the yard, you have to have your head on a swivel every second. The story, it's a presence at the edge of your perception, a constant reminder of the stakes. One moment of distraction and you could join him. That's the real warning. He's not there to hurt you. He's there to remind you what happens when you forget where you are. He's the ultimate cautionary tale, a silent guardian born of tragedy. As the engineer said, you could end up wandering these rails forever, a ghost in your own right. This story has seeped from the rail yards into the very soul of the city. It clings to the air on those characteristically Vancouver nights when a thick, damp fog rolls in from the Burrard Inlet, muffling the metropolis in a grey shroud. The foghorns moan from the harbour, blending with the distant whistle of a train. So next time you find yourself in Gastown, walking the cobblestone streets, or looking out over the port, and you hear that whistle cut through the mist, pause for a moment. Remember the Headless Brakeman. Think of his frantic, endless search. Is he looking for his head, or for something more? An acknowledgement, a moment of peace in a world that has long since moved on. His story is a testament that some events leave an indelible scar on a place, an echo that refuses to fade. The Headless Brakeman is more than a ghost story. He is a narrative woven into the steel and concrete of Vancouver's identity, a chilling reminder of the city's brutal industrial past and the human cost of progress. A spectral figure forever bound to the rails, his lantern a flickering beacon in the endless dark.